Hello, and welcome to the Season 3 draft for the newly renamed Platinum Draft League. I am joined by IL Kid, aka Brandon.
Hey everybody.
And we are also joined by Lily Avelia, aka Jonathan.
Hello, it's your boy, Mr. Runner-Up, every season.
And normally there would be a fourth with us, Mr. YeWen, but unfortunately there was some error when it came to planning, and he could not be here tonight. So we decided that we would still bring this video to you because you guys deserve this video and we want to be able to put it out. So we're just going to be doing it just the three of us today.
We want to at least get it out before week 2 matches get done because that takes too
that's
long.
what we agreed on.
Yes.
Yeah, we still got his ratings.
We do have his ratings. We have.
You gonna actually explain the ranking system real quick?
Yes. So how we decided to do this, because we had 4 of us working on this, is we each individually ranked each team from 1 to 14, and we gave them each points based on their ranking. So, for example, you got 1 point if you were in last, 2 points for second last, all the way up to first place getting 14 points. And so all we did was we took all our points in the end, we added them up, and we took the average, and and this is the average score for all the teams. Alright, so...
Sorry about that.
No, it's quite alright. Alright, so all we're going to be doing is we're going to be going through. You'll be able to see each of our individual scores as well as the average score, and we'll just kind of be talking about the team and why we think that they belong in these positions. And for anywhere that there may be a difference, we'll try and talk about, or we'll try to have those people specifically talk about why they rank the team higher or lower than the others.
The averages makes it very interesting for a few of the teams.
The difference in score does make a very interesting averages for certain teams. Alright. Who would like to take us off with number 14?
Usually we have a plan. We kind of plan out where we are on the list and figure that out, but we didn't do that. Professionalism at its finest. I can start.
Okay, you start us off.
All right, so you are looking at the best draft league team that you have ever seen in your entire life. This by far checks all the boxes. Who needs a dragon? Okay, we don't need those. Who needs a fair? We got bugs, okay? We have every single bug. This is surprising absolutely nobody. This is the worst team in this league. And I will genuinely say, because I was going to say this in the intro, but I will genuinely say there are 13 good teams in this league. This is by far the best you guys have ever done. Partly it might be because somebody went mono bug and decided to take nothing of value. I'm just kidding. There's some valuable picks on this team, but you guys really did well this time. Very proud of you. Hats off for sure. Everybody did really great. There really isn't a bad team on this list, IMO, but this is the one. This is the exception. Yeah, I don't know what else you want me to say. I mean, it has so much volt turn, and that's about all it has going for it. It's got some hazard control, but there is not a single rock resist on this team. There is a single fire resist on this team, except I guess technically Raquinid, my bad. But just in general, very easy to prepare for. Devin has said that his goal is to go positive this season, and I want you guys to demolish that goal for me. I don't want this man to get 3 wins, and I don't want this man to get 1 win. I want you guys to show that you can beat a mono team in draft. I believe in every single one of you. You can do it. Don't let YeWen get wins. We gotta start the movement, because I swear if this man goes positive with the mono bug team, we're gonna be kicking ourselves. So. I could have bothered to talk about speed tiers or whatever, but I'm just not going to, because this team is mono bug.
Is that it? Is that all we're going through? I'm good with going to the next one if the rest of us are.
I am too.
What more is there to say?
We really shouldn't highlight this team for that long.
Alright. Jonathan, would you like to take 13, or do you want me to take 13?
Yeah, I can go.
Okay, lead us in with number 13.
At number 13, we have the Milwaukee Bewears, aka Fuzzy, and there's a few reasons why we didn't think too highly of this team. For starters, it's missing two primary types you want for your cores. It's missing a fighting type for that fighting psychic
Dark.
dark, and then you're missing a grass type for the water fire. You do have Silvally. I will give you that. Means he's forced into those roles the weeks you need a grass type or need a fighting type, and he might not have the best coverage that the mons of these types would have otherwise. The hazard removal is okay. I feel like you're kind of forced to run it only on Wheezing and
Scizor.
Silvally every week, but Scizor can, but it depends on defensive or offensive, really.
Mm-hmm.
The Rockers, I will admit, Crook and Mudsdale are very solid, but they're both ground type, and I feel like that's a bit tough for you.
Especially considering one of your other essential defensive pieces is also weak to grass and Vaporeon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You do have quite a few repeat types on this team. I get the Sandslash and the Ninetales because you want the Snow Warning, you want the Slush Rush. That works. I'm more questioning the Crook and the Mudsdale on the same team. Like, they kind of fill the same role. I will give you that if you bring both, one could be offensive, the other defensive, but if you bring them separately, it's like they're going to do the same stuff every week, more or less.
Mm-hmm.
It's really with the Crook and Mudsdale, it's an optimization issue. Because, we felt that you probably could have picked up a different dark type that would have done a bit more work for a team like this versus something like a Mudsdale. In the tier you drafted Crocodile, a Zoroark was there, which I do believe covers a speed tier that would be nice. Because Ninetales is a little faster, but I don't know, I like base 105 as a speed tier. I think you can never have enough of that kind of range.
Actually, I think Crook is tier 2 and Zoroark is tier 3.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful, so it's actually cheaper, and I still think it's better for this team. But another thing, Devin definitely wanted me to bring this up. He thinks you should drop Crook for Breloom, and you should just run Silvally Dark all the time. I don't know how I feel about that personally, but he thinks you should do that because Silvally Dark, he thinks Silvally Dark is one of Silvally's better sets, and he views very highly of Breloom, and as do I. So I would say if you can fit a Dark type on your team somehow, if you went the Breloom route, that would be cool, and not rely on it being Silvally. But that's neither here nor there. He definitely wanted me to mention that. That maybe you should consider adding Breloom to your team. And I could talk to the strengths of this team. Zeraora likes being on this team. And how I'll explain is it has switch-ins to what it fears. Because what is the big thing it does fear? Like ground type attacks. Scizor is basically a ground resist. Weezing's a levitator. Ninetales can pressure them out. Vaporeon can switch into most ground types pretty much. And it also has a kind of fear. It obviously only weak to ground because it's pure electric, but it kind of has a fear of just wall breakers. Things that are really bulky and things that can take its hits because Zeraora isn't necessarily the strongest. It's strong, but it's not like Weavile's base attack. It's not other really good breakers base attacks. It's strong, but it's not as strong as them. But it likes being on this team because what does Zeraora want to do? It wants to click Plasma Fist, right? If you could bring Banded Plasma Fist every week, you'd be extremely excited with that. And you at least set yourself up well to do that because what resists Plasma Fist? Well, ground types, obviously. You have a great answer for them in Vaporeon. And you have a great answer for them in Ninetales. You can put screens behind Zeraora too on top of that after you pressure out those ground types that want to switch into Plasma Fist. Grass types are really good against it. Scissor's got a stab U-turn for them. Chandelure is completely scary. Weezing's an excellent switch-in. So Zeraora is really built well around. And the Volt turn on this team helps him as well. But it just has some shortcomings and some things Lily mentioned. Just misoptimization of types and not having a grass and fighting type ruined this team because all the other teams, of course, except number 14, covered their essential course. Every single other one. And
Almost
you have
every
to
single
decide.
other one.
Oh, really?
There is
Was there one
one.
more?
There's
I
one who's missing a
apologize.
single typing, but
Okay, well, they're not two, not this many.
Mm-hmm.
And this team is either gonna have to choose between not hitting normal types super effective stab, or Leech Seed and Spore being totally free versus you. And both of those are pretty unacceptable. So that's why it's so low.
Mm-hmm. Again, like we said before, none of these teams are necessarily bad, but there's still ways to improve. Almost all of these teams have spots where they can improve by switching out one or two mons for another mon. We just want to try and give you the tips that you would need if you want to switch your teams. If you think your team is fine, stick with your team. But if you want to make switches, then listen to what we're saying because we're telling you how
That's
you can
all
make
about.
those switches.
It's an opinionated video.
Mm-hmm.
Also, to speak on the one core you did get, Dragon Fairy Steel, amazing budget value. Good job.
Yeah.
YeWen is really likes being on this team.
Mm-hmm.
It's able to pressure things and get initiative. Ninetales provides much needed. I wouldn't say much needed screens, much helped, much appreciated screens. Also giving Sandslash a chance to sweep.
Yeah.
And Mega Scizor is completely solid and works on almost every composition. So well done.
Mm-hmm. Very good.
I also personally like you. I like what you did with your speed tiers. I feel like they're pretty solid, honestly.
Yeah, not bad at all.
Yeah. All right. So I will take over for team number 12, which is Okani and the
Speaking of
Buca
speed
Cavaliers.
tiers.
Speaking of speed tiers. So I believe this is the other team. Yes, this is the other team who's missing one of the core types, and that is a dark type.
My bad.
It's alright.
Oof.
Having a dark type is very scary, because even though you have that nice Genesect there, your team is still kind of scared of a strong psychic type, because you don't have any mons who are immune to it. Plus, you are a bit weak to Prankster. One of the biggest buffs that dark types got was that they are immune to Prankster boosted moves, and there are quite a few mons in this league who have Prankster and want to click Prankster moves. So having a dark type to swap into is always useful. But other than that, I know they were talking about earlier, but your speed tiers are a bit scary. I think the biggest ones we might be worried about is between Genesect and Rillaboom. That big, almost 15-point gap is very scary because every other team has at least 1 to 2 mons who can fit right into that speed gap. And they
even bigger than that is the 100 to base 121.
I'm sure he was
speed.
getting to
Yeah.
that. I'm sure he was getting to that.
I was getting to that. I wanted to bring up that one. I wanted to bring that one first because that one seems more plausible. Obviously, the 121 to 100 is scary, but that's usually where some teams even cap out. I know we have one team who caps out at 115, but even still, having that big speed gap there is very dangerous. The other thing we noticed is that you drafted 4 flying types on this team. Now,
I'm sorry.
It's fine. I get why you drafted some of them. You drafted Tornadus T because it has Regenerator and U-turn, so it's a very valuable defensive mon. Gligar's there for rocks, and then you drafted Charizard because you insisted on having Charizard. But I think there are other mons who can fit in here better than Pokemon like Gligar. Like another ground type who doesn't have to worry about being quad weak to an ice move. I know we had some mixed opinions on Corsola because we just didn't really. Was it you, Brandon, who didn't really favor Corsola?
Hate that Pokemon.
Hate that Pokemon. That's it.
Galarian is the only one that's actually worth a damn.
Love that Mon.
But it can still do something. It does have Regenerator, and it does get Stealth Rocks. But that's only one of your 2 Stealth Rock sitters. And both of your Stealth Rock sitters are pretty on the weak side. So that's a dangerous game you're playing there.
When Lily told me Corsola gets Regenerator, I shit my pants.
Another thing, now this just might be me, but after you drafted Mega Ampharos, I don't understand why you decided to immediately draft the Toxicity.
Not toxic. You know, that's not just you. That doesn't make any goddamn sense.
I know that I know that the whole point of this team is to like to have momentum with lots of Volt Turn and lots of Regenerator, but I don't think that I don't think that Toxicity fits your team. I think that if you were to drop Toxicity or Gligar or even both to pick up your missing Dark type and something that can better help out your team, I think that would be very good for you. But there are very strong points to this team. I know we were talking yesterday, I really like your Grass, Water, Fire core. I think that's a very strong core. Oh, that's the other thing. Was it you, Jonathan, who brought it up about grassy terrain with Diggersby?
With the Diggersby?
With the
Yes, it
Diggersby.
was.
Do you want to talk about that one?
It
might have been both of us, honestly. I know we
Because-
both talked about it.
Because we both said that Diggersby lost so much coverage.
Yeah.
And the fact that it's really only saving Grace is Earthquake and spamming Earthquake, but it can't really do that on this team. It has Click High Horsepower, which can miss, and is 5 base points less.
Yes, you took your already nerfed Mon and you nerfed it more. Good job.
Yeah, good job. Negative synergy. Drop that immediately. Find something different.
Yeah.
IMO anyway. Again, if you like Diggersby and you're excited, Diggersby.
You do have two ground types, so you don't necessarily need the Diggersby.
No, you don't. But you also don't need the Gligar, so it's really interesting.
It's interesting to say the least, but I would say if you want to try and make your team a little bit better, I would say look at where you have typings that line up and see if you can fit something in there that would better benefit your team. I would definitely say though, I think you should definitely look into grabbing a dark type because I think dark types are almost necessary in Pokemon Draft Leagues just because of how useful they are. Even if it's even if you went into Tier 5 and you drafted a lower dark type like Liepard, even having the dark type automatically makes the team better. So I would say look into dark typings and maybe look into dropping some of your dual typings that you don't really need.
Honestly, Liepard helps with the speed tiers too.
That's true. It can help with the speed tiers.
Very much so, yeah. It's super nice. Because Liepard at least demands a little respect.
Yeah.
Plus, it gets Prankster itself, and it can do things like T-Wave or Taunt.
It also gets Unburden if you ever feel saucy and want to do a Unburden Grassy Seed set.
You could do that if you really wanted to.
I'm clicking more knockoff is never a bad thing, because right now I think it's just Diggersby and Gligar.
And Rillaboom.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh, and Torn.
Everything gets knockoff. Never mind.
Yeah.
Yeah. Alright.
Gotta say, Corsola serves no purpose on this team. It Slowbro's better in every way. The only thing Corsola has on Slowbro is Stealth Rocks.
To be fair, this team is lacking on rockers.
I feel like that's the main thing with this team is that this team has good mons to it, but then you added on Pokemon who are essentially weaker versions of those good mons, and there's no reason why you should have. Yeah. I just realized I wasn't on Do Not Disturb. They probably heard all my Discord notifications. Oh well.
I didn't hear any.
I have heard nothing.
That's because you can't hear the recording. Oh well.
Oh.
We'll worry about it later. Alright. That's all I have to say about this team. Does anyone have any final notes or
I'm all good.
Alright. Then you can
Genesec's a massive threat that is hard to prepare for.
Alright, well then if you're all good, you can take us away with number 11.
Cyrun. Alright, so as you can see on our little rankings here, one of us was very high on your team. Matter of fact, had it in the top 5. We brought your averages down a bit as a collective, but I am here to speak on his behalf as well. We'll definitely bring up the points that he was making. And we'll start with those because I want to talk about it while it's fresh in my mind.
All right.
So why Devin thinks this team's top 5 is because he felt that Mega Metacham was well built around. He felt that you covered basically all of his weakness, because I know Metacham isn't weak to Psychic, but special attack Psychic type Pokemon can wall break through Metacham, right? Like we could all kind of agree on that, you know?
Yeah.
Maybe even after a Calm Mind. Some Pokemon are crazy enough to kill it after a Calm Mind. Some Pokemon are that good. Heatran's an awesome Psychic Resist. It's also an awesome Fairy Resist. It's also an awesome Flying Resist. And this team has an Ice weakness. Heatran also takes care of that. He also likes Togekiss as a defensive core with Heatran. Likes your Dragon Fairy Steel core quite a bit. He would even say that you nailed it. And he would say that your Fighting Dark Psychic core is very great with the likes of Mega Metacham and Drapion. And your Fire Water Grass core is absolutely nothing but solid. It is his take. He says your rockers are fine, your hazard removal is fine. He understands the Mr. Mime Galar pick because he needed a tier 5 ice type that's a rapid spinner, and you're not going to be running a lot of speed in Mr. Mime Galar, so he didn't see the issue with them being base 100 along with Mega Metacham. Similar to how I view Miltank, right? And yeah, he just doesn't think you drafted any bad Pokemon per se, and they all just happen to work pretty well together. Then you have our opinions, where we think this team has a massive ice type weakness. And we think Heatran is killable, despite common belief, or how I used it in our RT Season 1. Little flex there. But it is killable, and it is you are able to wear it down and then past it, and maybe not Mr. Mime, but maybe Mr. Mime Galar doesn't make an appearance this week and you use primarily Heatran. There's a potential that you can have 5 Pokemon on the same team with an ice weakness. Which is a yikes, to say the least.
Yeah.
Same issue with the flying types, really, because Heatran is the bird spam answer. It is the answer to flying type attacks. Because Togekiss can be, unless it's a really physically offensive Brave Bird, which is quite common among flying types. And this team will get worn down by those. This team has a poor weakness to meta typings and has very weird double-ups. Very weird. I don't really see the purpose of Tornadus and Togekiss. Devin did. It's a simple answer is one of is offensive and one is defensive. I don't know why he didn't view that way with the Crook and Mudsdale argument, but he did this time. They have very similar base special attacks, though. And Togekiss very well could be offensive if it wanted to. I feel like Tornadus is really only there for a speed tier, but Raichu's also there. It's just a more meta speed tier. Something you'll bring more than a Raichu. But nonetheless, poorly optimized, in my opinion, because there are other things that could have worked, basically. I understand you drafted all the typings, and you still doubled up on a couple. Actually, does he even have a bug type? Man, who drafted a bug type? Well, Devin took all of them.
He does not have bug or rock.
I mean, yeah, it's 2 typings I don't mind missing out on.
Same.
But there's just something better you could have done for the Tornadus argument. And the rocks on this team, yeah, I just took another look at it. The rocks on this team are piss poor. Stealth Rockers. It's just Heatran and Donphan, right? I'm looking. Yeah, it's just Heatran and Donphan. I just wanted to make sure I have it written down here that it was, but I could have been a moron whenever I wrote it down. It's just Heatran and Donphan, man. Like, that's going to be so rough. Because Donphan sometimes wants to run Assault Vest. Heatran sometimes wants to run Specs. Heatran is forced into such a defensive role on this team. And As I will give you, your breakers and sweepers are nice. I'll say breakers, actually, because really it's in the sweeping department. It's just Haxorus, right? Like, that can really
Yeah.
Dragon Dance.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Togekiss can Nasty Plot, but that's
Maybe
not really
Torn.
for sweeping. Yeah, Torn as well. It's a little slow, though. Like, and it doesn't set up its speed. But that's kind of the flip coin there. Like, and that's the beauty of these averages, because a lot of the same arguments were used against each other in that, because Devin likes how Heatran is such a piece to this team and thinks Heatran has this insane ability to last. We don't think so, and that simply was why it's so low.
Mm-hmm.
Because we all are in the same boat, 3-3-4, and then YeWen 10. We all feel this way, and they'll add in little things that I might have missed here in a second, but Volturn's pretty good, though. Volturn's pretty good. Give you that. It's not great, like absolutely stunning, but it's pretty okay. 3 or 4 in there, because I forget if Togekiss gets Baton Pass.
It does
It
get
does.
Baton Pass.
Yeah, so that's okay. There's 4 there. Then that's fine. Below average, I'll admit, but it's fine. Because I like 5. I don't even think my team has 5, and that bothers me. I like 5, and I like 6. I like as much things Volturning as possible. Personally,
I will give you the Raichu, Torn, and Inteleon probably will run their pivot moves every time you bring them.
Every time, yeah. Actually, it's, believe it or not, you don't really run U-turn a lot on Tornadus. At least I didn't in practice.
Interesting.
Yeah, I really didn't, because think about it. You gotta fit Nasty Plot, you gotta fit Defog, you gotta fit other coverage moves.
I see your
Mhm.
point.
Yeah, it might be a little harder, and you don't always run that maybe Scarf set. But what do you guys have to say?
Well, to go off the ice weakness thing, you're very lucky no one drafted Kyurem this season, because boy, you have no switch-ins to that mon.
Lily picks up Kyurem next week.
Don't tempt me.
Gotta be ready. Cyrun's coming in with that Metacham.
Yeah. I think Brandon did cover this, but your speed tiers are very clumped together. They're like all in the same range.
I did not, actually. Thank you for that. I did not.
You're very 90 and above. You're like all in that section of the speeds. And so that means, honestly, not a lot of fast mons are going to be able to run offensive natures versus you, which is good, but a lot of slow mons are going to be able to run more offensive natures for sure. They probably won't need to speed creep too much if they wanted to outspeed one of your faster mons and assume they're not going to be running any speed.
Gotcha. What you got, Monotone?
I think you guys both covered this team fairly well. I would say, because the main thing I want to bring out is I want the teams to improve. Obviously, like I said before, if you think your team is fine, go with it. Like, if you want to agree with YeWen and say you're a top 5 team, say you're a top 5 team. I don't care. But we want to give you, from our perspective, what you can improve. I would say a big thing that you could probably do is I would say maybe drop the Tornadus to pick up something a little bit more bulky to help you with mons who would want to do lots of damage to Pokemon like Heatran. Like, maybe pick up a bulky water type. I know you already have a water type there, but picking up a bulky water type might not be awful for you. Obviously, it doesn't really help with your ice problem, but maybe that's something you can turn with Stoutland for, because normal types aren't bad, but if you can use that tier 5 spot to pick up something like a rock type to help you deal with ice, that wouldn't be an awful idea. It would also help you get more stealth rocks up there.
True. I don't like him losing his ghost immunity, though.
I was just going to comment on Stoutland, actually. There's so many actually legitimately good low-tier normal types, and I don't know why you wasted the spot on Stoutland when I will admit he doesn't need sand, but after losing return, he is very lackluster now.
A lot of
Think
mons
about
are
that,
very
yeah.
lackluster after return is gone.
It's a big sad.
I think his best move is Facade at the moment.
Yeah,
And
unless he runs like takedown or double edge.
like just looking at tier 5 normal types at the moment, Kecleon gets rocks. That'd give you another rocker. And it's not even that terrible of since it has Protean.
We're good. Think we're
Yeah,
good?
I think we've covered everything.
Yeah. Sorry for a little fried. It's kind of late.
Yeah.
It is.
But so that's the
Yeah,
main
we're-
things is maybe consider swapping out Stoutland and Tornadus to pick up either some more bulk or just a better budget pick. But other than that, the team is very good. I
I
do
was gonna
like
say,
this team a lot.
or go say you're a top 5 team and
Or
chill with
say
YeWen about
or
that.
say you're a top 5 team and yeah. Yeah,
Because honestly, we are. I would say we are all pretty credible sources, and somebody who is just as credible a source as any of us, maybe even more so on occasion. No, I'm just kidding. But maybe even more so, said that this team is really solid. So it is obviously just a perspective. Like I said, that's why I like the beauty of this list, because it shows all opinions. It's not just me and Devin compromising on something that we disagree with. We both got our rankings out there, and it combined the average. So I like that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
What's number 10? And who's next?
It would be Jonathan. And number 10 is
I was about to say it. Please go, Jonathan.
I was
I'm
waiting
sorry.
for Jonathan to
Mono,
say it.
do you mind taking this? My cat's at the door.
Okay,
He's been
I'll take
like
over.
outside all day.
Yeah, I'll take over. All right.
Thank you.
So, I get to talk about my week 1 opponent. How fun.
How fun.
So, our number 10 is AngularPenny with the Los Angeles Absols. So, good part first is your first 3 picks, aka your Steel Fairy Dragon Core, aka Dragapult, Mega Gardevoir, and Ferrothorn. That core is very scary. You have Ferrothorn, who can come in and be a wall, and then you have 2 fast, super hard-hitting special attackers in the back. That core is very scary. It was one of the problems that I came up to when I was preparing for my match, was how am I going to deal with a core like that. So it's good to have something like that. You have also a pretty good dark fighting psychic core. You have Umbreon, who's a nice bulky wall, and it can be a toxic, it can be a cleric for some of your mons who can't really heal themselves. Plus, you have a decently bulky Mienshao who gets U-turn and regenerator, so it can heal itself. You also have the Rain with Pelipper and some Rain mons. It's hard to say whether this benefits you or hurts you. Obviously, with Pelipper and the Rain, you do get big advantages with Pokemon like Seismitoad and Ferrothorn. But we talked about it a little bit, and we think that the Rain might be partially of a deficit for you. Because not only is Pelipper your only rain setter, but it's also your only defogger from one of 2 Pokemon who can be possible hazard removals. And we don't really see you bringing Kabutops often, let alone running Rapid Spin on it. And with you always wanting to bring Pelipper for defog, that means you're always going to want to bring Rain. And it's always going to want to help out Ferrothorn or one of your Rain mons, which is very dangerous because people can predict that. And also, it puts a damper on your Entei because all of its fire moves are going to get hurt for it because you're setting up Rain for yourself. The other thing we wanted to talk about a bit was Dugtrio. Obviously, I know Dugtrio kind of helps your big speed gap between Dragapult and Heliolisk. But other than being another stealth rocker, we don't really know why Dugtrio is here. Obviously, you already have a much better ground type in Seismitoad, because even though the speed is nice and the rocks are nice, I think there are better options that you could have picked other than Dugtrio, but that might just be me. I don't know. Any thoughts?
Oh, sorry. I didn't know you were.
Uh,
I swear to God, Monotone.
I would say,
Go ahead.
I would say if you were to have a fire type on a rain team, I would definitely recommend Moltres because you get 100% accurate hurricanes and another defogger in that.
Or
And that is it. And that is the same tier as Entei is.
You want to go quad norm and go Volcanion.
Yeah, you could do that too.
That wouldn't be bad.
That would also give you a defogger, honestly.
Yeah. But I swear to God, Monotone is the most woke person on YouTube when it comes to these draft analysis. His shit always sounds so fucking intelligent, and I'm so jealous. I'm so jealous. Great point on the Pelipper. One thing I wanted to highlight is Autono makes 0 sense next to Umbreon.
That's true. I just kind of skipped over Autono.
It makes no sense next to Umbreon. Jonathan here did already mention, tons of good normal types in the lower tiers. Don't know why it was spent on normal type Umbreon. They get all the same stuff. They are both clerics. They are both wish passers. They both have negative attack stats. You know, it's so similar. The only possible thing I can think of is if you were worried about a really offensive bug type. You were that scared of YeWen's team, so you thought you had to have Autono for that week. That's the only. I mean, that's it. That's the only possible thing I can think of.
Not to mention, he already had a normal type in Heliolisk.
Right.
Well, actually, he drafted Heliolisk.
He did draft it later, actually, yeah.
Because this is in draft order based on the sheet.
I like Heliolisk more.
It's a very budget rain team. A lot of low tier mons that benefit from it.
Very much so. And the Pelipper thing is just damning. It's so hard because when are you going to bring Kabutops without Pelipper? You know, let alone bring it sometimes with Pelipper. And whenever that's gone, defog, it's going to be hard to justify a slot for Kabutops to click nothing but Rapid Spin. It's a crying shame because this draft had a really strong start, like Monotone said. And I just kind of feel like it fell off the rails.
I know he wanted the Tornadus Eye in the Pelipper spot, but Cyrun ended up stealing it from him. But
really?
I don't know.
He wasn't gonna make this a rain team?
He was not. It was a last minute rain team. So, that is why it's very budget.
So yeah, that's obviously not gonna work out for you.
Yeah.
But. So obviously, big things to change for this team is pick yourself up at least one more hazard remover, whether it be defog or rapid spin. Definitely pick up at least one more. And then maybe look at shifting some mons around. Like maybe instead of Kabutops, you can grab something else that benefits from water. Or maybe instead of Dugtrio, you can grab something else that fits in that speed gap. Because the team... sorry, you were going to say?
There are quite a few low tier fast mons in tier 5. Like Zebstrika would make more sense on this team. Why not rock out with 2 electric types with rain?
So it's all
like that one, but I see the point.
You get Sap Sipper and Lightning Rod, so it's covering weaknesses.
Yeah.
Sap Sipper's a big one.
But the biggest thing for this team is you definitely want to pick up at least one more hazard remover. I don't really think
maybe two.
Maybe two if you're feeling really scared. At this point, I would say your most likely candidates for swaps would be Dugtrio and Autono. Maybe you can take Lily's advice or Jonathan's advice and you can swap Entei for Moltres. But I would say look into picking up 1 to 2 more hazard removers, because especially with a team like this who doesn't want to take chip from things like Stealth Rocks, hazard removal is very important.
All right, good stuff, guys. Top 10, congratulations.
Yeah, you did make top 10, so that's something. All right, so now that we're back from helping the cat inside, Jonathan, you can take team number 9.
Oh boy. Next we have Spikemuth Morpekos, And this is my buddy Loko.
His buddy.
This is my fellow Morpeko fan, and I'm happy he actually used the Morpeko this. Let's talk about his team. My first problem is this team has very low pivots. Like, it does show quite a few mons, but out of these, honestly, no. First off, a lot of them are the same mon with multiple pivots. Lopunny gets both Baton Pass and U-Turn. Morpeko gets both Volt Switch and Parting Shot.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not going to be running those twice. I don't see the Frostmoth being U-Turn too often unless you're like a spec set. Arcanine definitely runs Teleport a fair amount. I don't know how often Milotic uses Flip Turn. Haven't seen it use it enough to really have a sense. You don't have that many rock. I will give ones Skarmory and I believe Rhydon. Yeah. Those are two mons that definitely have a very easy time fitting rocks onto their movesets. Your defog is extremely lacking. The only two mons I can really see running Hazard on a weekly basis is Morpeko, just because he's your only spinner, and sometimes you don't want to get rid of your own hazards. And then Latias, occasionally Skarmory. After using Skarmory during off season, I can honestly say that mon has 4-move syndrome like hell. Its moveset just fills up very fast. You want the hazards, you want the roost, you want some kind of attacking move. Yeah, Whirlwind too. It's just really hard to fit defog onto it sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Your team's very slow, but I already saw that you took advantage of that by running Trick Room. But weeks you're not, you're going to struggle. It basically demands you run Trick Room if you want to make use of those low speed mons. Your defensive mons are very solid. Milo is an absolute tank in both Spadef and Marble Scale defense. Skarmory is a god of physical defense. Slowbros has so many good resists. Shaman makes for a very good wall. Arcanine is a very solid, bulky fire type. Also, please spare us from Flame Orb Milotic this season. I hate that set.
But they love to run it.
Yeah, they do.
Based on these rankings, I believe I was the highest on this team, right?
You
I was the most excited about it for number
You were the
7.
highest, and YeWen was actually the lowest.
Yeah, okay. I was just trying to familiarize myself with that. So if anybody else was confused at home, higher the number, the better.
Yeah.
So I was the highest on this team. No, not by much. You guys were still 6. Yeah, YeWen was pretty low on this team, for probably the reasons that Lily outlined. But hey, you know what I'll say? It's still pretty solid. It's a little predictable, a little one-dimensional by a lot of means. It's arguable that Shaman is the most one-dimensional base 100 across the board Pokemon out of all of them. Arcanine brings you some versatility, which is really nice. But Skarmory is the same set every week. Morpekos is the same set more or less every week. Lopunny is the same set more or less every week. Milotic has some diversity, but not really. Frostmoth is hard to use. Rhydon's the same set every week. Granbull's the same set every week. And Spiritomb is the same set every week. There's not a lot of versatility, a lot of options. But you know what? You're Loko. And you've already done some crazy shit in week 1, so I'm sure you'll overcome it. But the average player would have a very hard time finding different and creative ways to come about using this team. And you already know I'm going to talk about that 25 beat speed point base gap. You already know I think that is disgusting and ugly. You already know I'm here. I'm out here hating on speed tiers. That's my resident job in power rankings, is hating on speed tiers. Like and Volt Turn. That's my two things. That's my two thing. You already know I think that's disgusting. You already know. And it doesn't get much better from Morpekos, because Arcanine's not running speed all that much. It's sometimes. You know what? I'll take that back. We'll actually make this argument about Arcanine, offensive Arcanine base 95, right? When are you ever running speed on Milotic, Skarmory, or anything? Basically, base 80s are free to run Adamant. Base 85s are also pretty free to run Adamant versus you too. So this makes mid-tier speed wall breakers. A good one that comes to mind is Chandelure. Another good one that comes to mind is Heracross. These kinds of Pokemon will demolish you because they're going to be able to run stronger natures and hit your team even harder. That's all I have to say, though.
Mm-hmm.
You guys covered everything else.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think people sleep on offensive Arcanine too.
Yeah, I wanted to add that because it pretty much is.
That one has an excellent move pool. It is very strong. It can definitely run offensive.
I didn't mean to disrespect Arcanine, and the point was still made. Regardless, base 97, base 95 is pretty similar. So it's base 95 to basically fucking Frostmoth at base 65.
Yeah.
Because I mean, if you run speed on Milotic and show me up like every week, then I'll shut up. You know, I'll shut up. I mean, you're gonna be a lot easier to kill, but I'll shut up.
Yeah.
All right. What's number 8?
So number 8 is
Pacific Panchams.
My boy.
I actually think you're taking this one, Brandon.
I think I am as well. And this is your boy because you were the highest on him. We are literally all in a row there, with YeWen being the lowest. So, strengths of this team is plenty. This is one of the most. I would say this and Popeye, Popeye's best friend and himself definitely drafted the two most polarizing teams in the league.
You mean?
What do I mean by this?
You mean Dravos?
I do mean Dravos. It's a little spoiler for what's to come ahead, but yeah, I think these two drafted the most polarizing teams in the league. And what do I mean? What do I mean with Popeye? This team is slow with speed control and crazy synergy in his high draft capital picks. He's got 2 tier 1s on this team, being Landorus and Dracovish, put in sand. Those are his high draft capital picks, adoring the Mega Tyranitar on the team, right? No offense or buts about it. Dracovish gets a double in speed, and Landorus basically becomes sheer force Lando, but has the option to run physical. It's so good. It's so good. There's no gripes. There's no anything wrong with that core. They don't even really share weaknesses. None of them, I'm pretty sure. Am I stupid there? I don't think I'm stupid. Nope, fairy. Nope, there. Yep, a little stupid there, but it's okay. It's okay. Sometimes we're stupid. But yeah, those two really like Mega Tyranitar on this team. Cobalion is an excellent support mod for specifically Mega Tyranitar, considering the fact that you do have a few ground immunities on this team. More than a few. Wow, that's a good amount. 4. Although Swellow's really, weak defensively.
It can,
really
but if you get the read right.
Get the read right, yes. If it doesn't click Stone Edge that turn. My point is, half of your team really likes sand, right? They're so excited to be on this team. The other half fucking hate it. Because Alomomola doesn't mind, but Venusaur doesn't make any sense. Venusaur has access to a base 100 special rock type attack for all those flying types that want to switch in on it. But I will say that is 25% for synthesis and sand chip on a mainly defensive Pokemon that doesn't want to take it. Cofagrigus really doesn't like sand either because every bit of chip on that mon is good. It's got such a low base HP with good defenses. Free damage on that thing is so nice. Swellow, if you want to run a gut set, is going to suffer in the sand because it's taking basically twice as much as Burn should do, like reverting back to a Gen 1 Burn, and really, really starting to put pressure on a Pokemon that's really doesn't have a lot of high HP either. Cryogonals, it's really whatever. I mean, it's really whatever. I don't know. It doesn't necessarily mind. It's sand chip. Everything is going to mind sand chip. Rotom Heats, you could essentially cancel out leftovers, or if you're deciding to run heavy duty boots and defog, that is still free damage. See Kofag for why that's bad, especially considering the fact that neither of them get recovery. Gardevoir doesn't mind it though, and neither does Almamola, as I said before. But it's the simple fact that this team isn't at its full, I'll say, optimization, because Lily brought up a good point that you can still run Strong Jaws instead of running Mega Tyranitar. But the issue with that is it's not optimization. If I think that Dracovish needs to be Sand Rush this week, it just needs to be, or Landorus needs to be Sand. I need to bring Landorus with its best ability. I need to bring Landorus in its best situation to get this damage that I need. There's a lot of members on your team that are going to struggle with that. You could very well each week bring at least 2 members that don't want to be involved with Sand, and that you can play around it, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about these teams at a subjective-based, our opinions of how we think it's going to play out. And we're talking about these teams with optimization. And I just feel that your high draft capital's got a lot more attention than your low tiers. And it's going to bite you in the ass on some weeks where you might need a lower tier option. You might need Kofagrigus to take a lot of hits from a really offensive Darmanitan, for instance. That little bit of sand chip will put you out of living 2 Flare Blitzes. But you also want to bring Mega Tyranitar because you want your Dracovish to outspeed a Choice Scarf Darmanitan. That's just one very specific example. I'm sure I can find more. I won't waste any more time, though. I'll move on. I'll pass the mic here. But I guess the only mon I didn't really touch on is Shuckle, which is honestly whatever. It's a tier 5 that gives you webs. So that's an option for Dracovish to not have to run Sand Rush. So that's a positive out of a tier 5. And much needed hazards as well. Hazards aren't crazy strong on this team. So DFS cores, we haven't really talked DFS or any of those kinds of cores as much. I kind of touched on them a little earlier on some of the teams. But DFS core is pretty okay. It's very slow, but pretty okay. And then Fire, Water, Grass is very defensive, and Dark Psychic Fighting is nuts. So, also, the team without Sand is really slow, with only Swellow being the outlier, which is mon you probably won't bring that often because it is still a Swellow. You're not drafting Swellow thinking you're going to bring it 6 weeks or 7 weeks in a 10-week league. You might bring it 3 or 4. So that's capping out at Cobalion after that, and that's an issue.
Also, one thing I would like to bring up, which is something that occurred during your week 1 match, is if you lose your Mega T-Tyre early, then you also lose the Sand. So if you're planning on Pokemon like Lando I or Dracovish to put in work because they have Sand, then you have to make sure that you're playing extra defensive with that Mega Tyranitar, which will stop you from running more offensive sets most of the time, like Dragon Dance, because you want to preserve the Sand, which means you want to preserve Mega Tyranitar. Obviously, you could go for the option on running Sandstorm on one of your bulkier mons who get it, but that's not always a best option, because a lot of times that means you'll be sacrificing a move slot just to help these other Pokemon when Tyranitar does it perfectly fine by itself. So I would say big things for this team is that if you are planning to go with the Sand team, then you gotta really dive headfirst in with the Sand team. I know you have Swellow for the speed tier, but you would probably do better picking something else up that doesn't mind getting Sand Chip. Kofag's kind of in the air. I do think Kofag really helps out the team because it's a nice defensive ghost type. Cryogonal and Alamola you can keep. I'd say Rotom can keep. Venusaur might need to swap for something because with it losing its main form of recovery and synthesis because of your own Sand, it's a very dangerous game you're playing.
And Vileplume's right there.
Yeah, I was just going to say that.
True. And it does.
There really is a strong irony of Fagrigus being this like desert dwelling mon, and it just hates Sandstorm.
Not a fan of that shit.
No. You did say Rotom and Kotha don't get any kind of healing, but they do both get Pain Split for whatever
I
that's
know.
worth.
Shut up.
And with really low base HP, that actually worst recovery.
I use Rotom. I've used Rotom extensively. I know about Pain Split.
Yeah.
I know
you do.
Mm-hmm. But
it's there. I understand.
It's still dangerous.
Did I not use the word reliable? Because I thought I did.
You probably did. I'm just an idiot.
Yeah.
If I didn't, that's what I meant. Reliable recovery.
But even still, Pain Split's a dangerous game, especially for a Pokemon like Cafagrigus, who's so slow that almost any other Pokemon will outspeed it and will probably do big damage to it. Plus, there's also always the chance with Pain Split that they predict and they swap into something that has lower health and you actually heal your opponent on accident. But
Yeah, that's a good strategy.
Again, that's a wild prediction that they would have to make.
It's good on Kofag because it's so weak, but
Mm-hmm.
Rotom does hit a little harder, so you have to worry about that.
Yeah.
I will say your buddy Big Russ Aloe does help this team with wish support a lot because it'll kind of negate that sand chip for you, and while also healing itself with its amazing ability in regen.
I won't hate on you too much for the double water. It makes sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
They play two very different roles, so it definitely.
Yeah. But I honestly don't like having Alamo as my only water type. It means I'm not really utilizing the stab that well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay.
This is a good example of doubling up on typings well.
Yeah.
For sure.
So number 7?
Number 7. Do we want to go back to original order or
I'll take it.
Okay. You
There we
can
go.
take
Back to
number
original order.
7.
All right. At number 7, we have the Arnhem Absols, our commissioner, the Joker. Joker's team is a lot of offense. I know he's a big. So I feel like this is a team that he will really work well with. It has very strong bulk too. Mandibuzz and Cress are two mons that are very hard to break. Steelix and Avalugg absolutely swallow physical hits. Diancie is can run either, but that's probably where the bulk starts dying a little. And then Nidoqueen can be offensive, defensive. It does whatever you need on a weekly basis. I will say your offense and bulk do share a lot of weaknesses. I'm pretty sure, your team's very, very ground. Your only immunities are Cresselia, the Mismagius, and the Mandibuzz, and out of those, I wouldn't really call a Mismagius the most reliable switch in at times, because if you predict wrong, you're about to lose a good chunk of your HP, and because that mon's just not very bulky. Cress and Mandibuzz definitely will cover those ground types for you. Only problem there is a lot of ground types get rock moves for the Mandy, so right there, you're taking that risk as well. I do like the Steelix and Mandibuzz core. They cover each other pretty well. Your pivots are actually not too bad. It's all mons I can pivot moves on a weekly basis. Your rockers are Nidoqueen, Steelix, and Diancie. All very solid. All mons I could see running rocks with ease. Your hazard removal's a little shaky. Mandibuzz does have a pretty easy time running defog, though some weeks it do not want to. Serena loves rapid spin because with the speed boost, it becomes an offensive threat. And Avalugg, with the help of boots this generation, definitely does like being a spinner now. Your speed tiers capping at 150, pretty atrocious. Yeah, I personally like to cap 120 min because you're letting so many fast mons just run speed natures versus you. Like a Mega Arrow, for example, that runs Adamant versus you easy. You can make the argument, oh, I can run one of my fast mons Scarf. That's not going to stop the Aerodactyl from being Adamant versus you. Yeah, you two got anything to say?
I do. JoJo Stars officially just turned 21.
Good
So
addition.
wish her a happy birthday. Wish her a happy birthday for sure.
Happy birthday.
Oh, you're sleeping on defensive Serena. That's what I was going to say. Because you didn't mention that Serena and that good ground resist core.
Mm-hmm.
And how it doesn't mind switching in on a Stone Edge and then punishing said ground type. That's pretty much all I had to say. I was gonna, you already know I was gonna roast those speed tiers. Thanks for ruining it for me.
You're welcome.
You for that. I appreciate that. I appreciate it. Okay, Ambipom being one of your fastest mons, tied for first. It's just looking gross. At least it's not a meta where you have to be shiny, rash to run an Aurasphere, right? That's gone now.
Yeah, that is gone now.
True, it is gone now.
That's gone now, so you can still run Aurasphere. You should still run Shiny Raikou, though, because Shiny Raikou is better, just objectively.
I disagree strongly there, but opinions.
Yeah, I mean, it's okay to have the wrong one, Lily, which you do from time to time, including to this time. But objectively, Raikou is better whenever it's shiny. Yeah, but you really covered it. And I will say, taunt this defensive core. That's how you beat it.
Honestly, yeah. You're not wrong there.
Taunt this defensive core and click Toxic. And then just hit Steelix a lot. He'll fall down eventually.
They always do.
Steelix relies so hard on lefties on this team because you didn't draft any kind of wish support for it.
Which I don't always think is a bad thing, but
no,
Steelix
I
like
agree.
It.
Steelix for sure is one of those mons that doesn't mind a little boost.
So is Nidoqueen, to be honest, but Nidoqueen also doesn't need it. And we'll see how Urshifu does, right, guys? New Pokemon to the metagame. We'll see how Urshifu performs.
It's unfortunately did not perform its best week 1. I think misunderstood my speed stat or something. But
yeah, you just moonblast it and kill it.
Yeah, he brought it in as a revenge killer and discovered I was faster.
Got it.
But this mod does get an advantage because I believe it gets access to Aqua Jet for priority.
It does get Aqua Jet.
That is nice.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so with that,
all right,
we will be moving on to team number 6.
The next polarizing team.
This was, for some reason, this is the only team I had no icon for. I think it's because he recently switched. So
he has not made one.
He has not made one, so I had to find a filler icon. But anyways, so this team has a lot of good potential to it. Your Dragon Fairy Steel Core is very specially offensive because all of these mons are very specially focused. I know Tapu Koko, it can be physical because it gets Wild Charge and it just got access to Play Rough, which is very good for it. Empoleon can try to be physical if you want to try and run a Defiant variant by punishing Defoggers, can be useful. And we also have your Fire, Water, Grass core, which I believe is a bit on the weaker side, but I know you... What happened? Did they cut out? Okay, so my internet decided to randomly cut out on me for no reason. But we're back. And I am going to try again to go through the Bellingham Klefkes and Mr. Javos' team. So, as I was saying before, I was rudely interrupted. The Dragon Fairy Steel Core here is a very powerful special core. You have Tapu Koko, who is a super threat, being a good, strong electric and fairy type, and thanks to it being able to set up its own electric terrain, it has even further boosted electric moves. You have Empoleon, who's a nice bulky water type and part steel to help you with fairies. It's very good. It gets access to both Defog and Stealth Rock, so it can be a great utility mon. Or you can decide to run offensive with moves like Flash Cannon, Hydro Pump, Ice Beam. And then you also have Goodra, who is just a super strong special mon. It loves to run Assault Vest to eat up special hits and then deal back with even stronger special hits. We also have the Fire Water Grass Core, which is decent. I know you talked about wanting to get a sweep off thanks to Chlorophyll Levani, which you always could. Having that Chlorophyll speed can always be useful. On a Pokemon like Levani, though, I don't know how much use you'll make out of it, but I'm sure you'll find a way around it. And then you also have the Dark Fighting Psychic Core, and thanks to the other Urshifu that no one wanted to draft, you were able to pick it up, which is a very strong physical mon. And you have Azolf, who can be anything it wants. It can be special, it can be physical, it can be utility. The one thing, and this is kind of a major thing that we want to bring up with this team, is that we are worried that you might end up getting messed up by your own son. Obviously, you have Mega Charizard Y, who likes to have Sun Up so it can have its boosted fire moves. You also have your Levani, who gets a speed boost thanks to Chlorophyll, and it also gets turn 1 solar beams if you want to use those. It gets a stronger it gets stronger synthesis, which can always be useful for recovery. But that's pretty much where the sun ends. None of your other mons really benefit from sun. Empoleon doesn't like it because it ruins its water moves. Rotom Frost doesn't like it because it makes its blizzards less accurate from already inaccurate 70. Your team just doesn't really like the sun all that much, which is kind of a bummer because having sun or having weather in general is usually an advantage you can use against your opponent. But in this case, you can't really use it that well. Also, at first glance, it's hard to see why Drifloon here, but obviously it's because you plan on doing some Unburden strats with Tapu Koko. I just don't think that using Unburden Drifloon is going to be your best use of that. I feel like there are definitely better Unburdened Pokemon who can be put into that spot, because the main thing about Drifloon is that I don't believe that, because I know we talked about this, but I don't believe that Drifloon can really be stuck with one offensive stat, because it has special moves that are one typing and it has physical moves that are another typing, but it doesn't really have those two types that just mash together to make this perfect offense. So you'll have to figure out how to run a mix set with that, which is going to be tricky. What else did I want to say about this team? You do have good volt switching. You have lots of volt switch mons. You have lots of U-turn mons. You even have quite a few mons with baton pass. You can use Kamala as kind of a wish passer. It's not going to be something that you want to use often, but it's always an option for some of those bulky mons without recovery, like Empoleon or even Goodra. I would say the main thing that we have a problem with in this team is the sun. I get Mega Charizard Y is strong, and its sun boosted fire moves are very good, but sun just doesn't really benefit the team you've created.
Hey, you said something, Lily, as well about this team getting messed up by its own terrain.
Yeah, I feel like electric terrain is, aside from Gudra and Gliscor and Coco, kinda, this team does not want to take electric moves. Now, I will give you, those are very solid electric answers. Gliscor especially, because not too many electric mons get ice moves, and the loss of hidden power really helps them. But if you lose that Gliscor in your battle, and there's electric type on the opposing team, I feel like you have 2 whole fire resists on this team, and you decide to draft Sun. Charizard Y, great mon, hits so damn hard with its fire, but you kind of want to draft a water type. I feel that can cover your now sun weakness you're giving yourself for those moments when Charizard doesn't want to be, or someone's trying to revenge kill you. If you're giving your opponent stab boosted by the sun, you're gonna lose. You're gonna lose Mons at that. You're gonna take a kill and basically give one right back. I'm not feeling. I get you wanted defoggers for your Charizards, but I feel like you chose some really questionable hazard support. Out of these, I can only see Empoleon, Gliscor occasionally, and Kamala ever being your hazard removers. The rest of them kind of just on their standard moveset don't want to run defog. You're certainly not using Charizard for it. Coco wants to be offensive. Rotom can, but it's probably better off being like a offensive set with this one. Drifblim does whatever Drifblim wants to do. Also, triple flying, my dude. Triple flying, especially for Tumon, especially when Drifblim and Charizard basically share all the same flying type weaknesses. The only difference is I think Charizard isn't weak to ice. I feel like Drifblim could be. We were talking about I think we agreed that Dusknoir would make this team so much better.
Yes, it would.
Rotom could be literally any other.
Literally any other ice type. Rough.
I mean, it does like the terrain. I will give it that. Otherwise, what does it get? What does it do for this team?
I'll add 2 additional points. Like one in favor, one not so much. Coco and Urshifu is so solid together. Stabs are unresisted, and they're such potent offensive options with the ability to have momentum. And Azelf only complements that because now you have the freedom to run physical or special Coco or physical or special Azelf and just know you're getting bold knockoffs and bold close combats out of base 130 Urshifu. It's just to complement those 3, it's just going to be so deadly and so much of a headache to prepare for. And then let's just throw in base 159 drought boosted fire blasts. Just for fun. I mean, it's this team is glass cannon-y for sure. And something I'll mention about the speed tiers, because you know me, I gotta have some fun fact about these speed tiers. I'd like you to address the little speed tier option on your left and follow along with me, class. Not kidding. But Urshifu is base 97 speed, Mega Charizard is base 100. We're gonna use Urshifu for this argument. Okay, base 97. Is it fair to say Gliscor doesn't run speed most weeks?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Is it fair to say Leavanny might come to 4 weeks?
Mm-hmm.
No, this is draft. It's going to appear more than it should.
Okay, so we can use Leavanny if you want me to.
We can, because it's also going to be chlorophyll boosted when it does come.
So we'll use Leavanny, base 92. And then Rotom Frost, we already said has some pretty poor synergy with this team in general. So on weeks that Leavanny's not there, literally everything Basically, base 95 and below is free to run Adamant and Modest versus you. There is such a big gap going all the way down to another Pokemon that doesn't run speed, Gudra, or Driftbloom. Again, this is accounted for Pokemon you don't run speed on and your tier 5s not coming to weeks, which should happen quite a bit. You shouldn't be bringing your tier 5s, I would say, more than 3 or 4 weeks. And even then, Rotom Frost and say like Urshifu isn't as bad, but it is kind of a big deficit. I think it's like 280. The exact speed is like 280. And then Urshifu would be like Hydreigon speed, 320, 224. Is that right? 324? Maybe a little bit lower?
I think so.
Yeah, something like that. That's still pretty big gap. And it's just those. It's the same. I said this about Okanial, or I say this about somebody else. I think I said this about Okanial. Speed tiers. I
can
rough.
tell you if you say it. Yeah.
Speed tiers are rough for sure. And in the lower ends, top ends, fucking top notch.
For sure.
I don't mind that.
I agree.
Whoa, that was a weird screen change.
Yes,
it's calling you out, Mono. What the fuck?
What did I do?
It's changing the screen.
What do you mean it's changing?
It's
changing like to our like audio levels or something.
Oh,
yeah.
Because it's capturing what I'm displaying. I get you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, all right. And Devin really likes your team. He thinks your defense is very top notch. We think it's average. He believes in Weezing a lot, and I do too. But Weezing gets chipped more often than not. It's not as durable as one would think in draft, is what we say. And Gudra's a monster. Gudra and Gliscor are monsters that share an ice weakness. So, and then this team ruined by fire.
I think we did come to the agreement if Gliscor is kind of like the main defense of this team. Without that Mon, without that Mon, you're kind of lacking a little.
This is the Bobby Wagner of this team. That one was for you, Popeye. That one was for you, Popeye. I'm good. What's number 5?
I believe you're on number 5, aren't you?
Yep.
Brandon?
And as always, we have our number 5 coach, the audio levels. No, the Cold War Cryogonals have consistently made the number 5 appearance.
Apparently.
In like every league we've done, according to him. I believe the only exception was last season.
No, I think even last season 5. I was 5.
You were even 5? I don't remember.
I'm not sure.
It's not on purpose, but it keeps happening.
It keeps happening. He keeps being upper echelon, but he doesn't snag that top 3 or whatever, top 2, number 1. It's just it's number 5.
At least you know you're consistent.
We also come across our first power ranker because our teams are top 5 and up.
Technically second power ranker. If we want to count Devin.
That's right, yeah. So hey, we did put one of us at the bottom, so but we did come across our first power ranker trying and draft a legitimate team. What we will say is this is all of our consensus. This is an average list. We didn't really take our own we took our own teams in consideration, obviously, but we had other validity determining this as well to eliminate bias. And we even went as far to at least alter our opinions by contacting outside sources of other power rankers whose opinions we thoroughly trust. And they typed these paragraphs about our teams and gave us overall grades. And that was taken into consideration. That being said, we have Monotone at number 5. And the reason why we have Monotone at number 5 is because Monotone is a fucking dickhead who thinks that every time he has to draft a goddamn team, he has to draft an unkillable one. He has to draft nothing but fat shit. Because he's really, really, really cool. But I also hate him. Because look at this shit. I have to kill Aegislash, Mega Blastoise, Miltank, Dragonite is kind of hard to kill on that with the first initial hit. Fucking Tangrowth, which he already balled out with in week 1, by far one of the better performances was how he used Tangrowth. Fuck this guy for drafting unkillable teams. I hope you keep getting. No, I'm kidding. Real talk. This is an amazing, bulky offensive team. Blastoise is still legit. I don't give a shit that it can't run Shell Smash. The Mon is still legit. The Mon is still one of the better rapid spinners in the game. The Mon still has base 135 special attack to fire off tons of great coverage moves. It's still legit. Aegislash is an obviously proven threat. Salazzle's a very slept-on offensive presence. Ribombee gives this team webs because it's kind of it's not even that slow if you look at it. It's got 4 Mons base 100 and above. Miltank kind of doesn't count, but it does have 4 Mons that are base 100 and above. And Unfezant is still 93. It's as I said, not as relevant, but having 3 Mons base 110 and above, that's the figure I'll use. Having 3 Mons base 110 and above is going to be very solid for the majority of weeks. It's going to be really awesome. And Ribombee just makes that even better. Ribombee makes it to now where Blastoise outspeeds most non-choice Scarfers, and that's such a threat, especially with it getting speed boost from Rapid Spin. And speaking of hazard removal, the team did quite well. It has 2 great forms of Rapid Spin. It now has Heavy Duty Boots, Defog, and Dragonite, which is a legitimate option. Maybe not its best, but it is a legitimate option. You can say the same thing for Ribombee. And then as much as Skuntank is an Unmon, it still does have access to remove hazards. So, yeah, I would definitely say this team is just bulk offense. It doesn't have the most top echelon wall breakers in the league. It has good wall breakers like Aegislash and Blastoise. But it doesn't have the most absolute top echelon wall breakers in the league. And look how good Aegislash is just next to all these Mons. Aegislash is hella weak to fire. Blastoise don't give a shit. Hitmontop is weak to flying. Aegislash doesn't give a shit. He drafted a great ghost immunity in Miltank, a great ghost immunity. One would say elite, and that's only me that would say that. Literally only me would ever use Miltank with the word elite. And then Skunktank's also a great resist for ghost types. Ground types are a little iffy, but Tangrowth is still there, and he's got 2 flying types. They're a little bit more iffy, though, because he does share a few ground weaknesses across the team, mainly highlighting the poison types, the double poison. Was going to emphasize that at first didn't make a lot of sense to me, but I can see Skuntank just being kind of an optional kind of poison type to bring on this team. Maybe doesn't come with Salazzle a lot, and definitely serves a different role in Salazzle, like in all aspects of the word. So basically, in moral of the story is this team is going to outbulk you, and it's going to hit you really hard. It's got plenty of ways to keep itself alive. It's got plenty of ways to keep itself in the game and prolong turns. And it also has plenty of ways to do enough damage to sustain and to keep you pressured and set you up for his sweeps. Because Rapid Spin Blastoise is still a sweeper. I'm just kidding. Not really. It's good, but it's not a sweeper per se. Quiver Dance Ribombee is still there. Ask Shycrow. Salazzle has the speed to nasty plot and sweep a team because it does have a very inherently high base speed tier. Unlike I think the base 95, it was base 80 Togekisu. I said nasty plot isn't really a sweeper; it's more of a breaker. Salazzle is a sweeper because it has such a high speed stat. Dragonite being able to Dragon Dance is obviously a threat that doesn't really need to be highlighted. Everybody here knows that. And then Aegislash being able to do a lot of breaking as well in its own right with weakness policy or its own setups with Swords Dance. And it does have access to priority and Shadow Sneak, which is also extremely solid. What I will highlight is I don't like your ground type with Aegislash at all, but that's probably the one thing I'm not so high on with this team. And again, why it wasn't necessarily top 5 is because whereas a lot of these Mons it wasn't like top 3 or even the best team, is because the wall breakers are sort of limiting. They're there, and I can respect them, but they are sort of limiting. And you might find struggle from time to time killing opposing defensive teams. But you'll at least be able to stay in the fight with them and do a lot of work and assert your own offense as best as you possibly can. Again, with the likes of Salazzle, again with the likes of Aegislash, with the likes of Blastoise, with the likes of Dragonite. And there's just always that really fat core. Also, Tangrowth's flying weakness is covered by Aegislash, so just... I mean, they're both fire weak, but Blastoise is there, but still, fuck you, dude. Oh, and Dragonite's also a great fire resist. That's all I had to say.
I will say I love that his 3 most offensive mons, Mega Blastoise and Dragonite, you can't predict if they're going to be physical, special each week. They have all 3 have like very even attack stats. I think Blastoise is probably the weakest link there with maybe 105 attack or something.
103, I believe. I think you're looking
yep.
at him now. Yeah,
Yep.
I'm a nerd for that. Base 78 speed.
I hella like that because it allows these mons to mix, and people are going to bring in their like defenses for them, and they're just going to get fucked because they're not the right defense for your coverage.
You gotta catch that max attack adamant flip turn.
Hey, it could happen. I could argue that Blastoise definitely doesn't need Shell Smash for sure. That Rapid Spin speed boost can definitely catch you some late game sweeps if your opponent isn't thinking about it. My one concern with this team is the Stealth and Palossand are very. Brandon just mentioned. Palo does share weaknesses with your best sweeper, one of your strongest offensive mons on this team, in Aegislash. But paired with Miltank, Palo actually isn't that bad, covering its ghost weakness for you. Miltank, absolutely versatile mon. Can do whatever you need it to, defensive wise. You need a special wall. Miltank is actually bad. Need a physical wall. It is phenomenal. Tangrowth is an absolute monster to try and kill. Regen is so good. You get low. You just switch it out. It takes super effective hits, as we saw. Your week 1 taking on a fucking Pelipper Hurricane. Dragonite got dual wing beat, so I think that monster. Flying Stab, decent Flying Stab, so it's finally, again, that dual stab it's craving for. Probably the one mon I'd question on this team is the Skuntank. I assume you grabbed it, probably Sucker Punch and Defog. But otherwise, it's a kind of lackluster dark. You already had a admittedly more solid poison type in Salazzle. I think Skuntank is your weakest link.
Do we want to talk about our own teams? Give us the floor to talk about our own teams, or we just want to move on?
I mean, we always could, if they want a little insight. I kind of talked about my team a lot in my own video.
You did.
But, I mean,
That's true.
I can go over it briefly.
Yeah, hit the highlights for us.
All right. So, obviously, I designed this team to be built around supporting Aegislash, because I figured Aegislash is probably going to be one of the best mons on the team. I wanted to make sure this team had a lot of support for Aegislash, so I decided to go with Pokemon that could take its weaknesses, like Mega Blastoise, Pokemon that can help it with its lower speed tier, so that would be Sticky Webs with Bombi. And I also needed things that could cripple Mon, so I have things like Salazzle, who has access to Will-O-Wisp, or Corrosion Toxic for any of the super scary walls. I have Rock Setters that can help whittle down some of the bulkier Mons. I have Pokemon like Tangrowth who can use Stun Spore or Sleep Powder. I do agree that I think Skuntank is my weakest link. The main reason I had Skuntank is I realized that after I got sniped a few times, I did not have a Dark type, and I had an extra poison already, so I figured my best solution would just be to change my poison so that it was poison and dark. I think if I could, I might end up looking back, changing that mon. I feel like I could find something that would provide me with a better use than Skuntank, but I still say the rest of my team is kind of what I want it to be. Obviously, there are a few major snipes for me, but I feel like I made up for a lot of the Pokemon I ended up missing out on.
Word on the street is Lipard's open.
Yeah, snipe him. Yeah, you take that.
We'll think about it. Alright. Jonathan, you are on team number 4.
Team number audio.
My man this season, Arathorn. Coach of the Champion Charizards.
Look at our ratings and look at Devin's.
My biggest issue with this team is the walls, while very solid, none of them actually get recovery outside of Arctic. That's a little concerning because that means you are going to be playing conserve the game each of your matches. Any chip is kind of bad chip for you. You really want that grassy terrain, honestly, for these mobs. You do have very, very powerful Bulu, Gallade, and Naganadel. Those mons are very good at breaking. I also know Naga is cleanup late game. If it gets off a plot, it just runs through teams, especially if you're getting that speed boost along with your beast boost. Your bulk is good, but as I said, it's actually kind of more leaning towards physical defense than special defense. If I had to go against this team, I'd probably run special attackers more often than I would physical ones, because you got Swampert, who's very reliable physical, the Intimidate Incineroar, you got the Fortress. Realistically, your special defense is Electros, Articuno, and Dusclops. And I don't even know how often Dusclops is going to make an appearance for you.
We'll see.
Let's see.
Probably not, though, yeah. I agree.
Your removal isn't that great, to be honest. I'm sure you've been feeling it a little bit too. Basically, it's down to Defog Articuno and Rapid Spin Fortress every week, which, while Fortress definitely can run spin pretty easily, that means you're basically forced to bring those 2 mons every week because you don't want to get stacked on. Your rockers are pretty solid. Fortress and Swampert both run it very easily. And I would argue that Rocks on Swampert Rocks on Fortress let Swampert do other things on a weekly basis. Fortress is just very one-dimensional. It's basically going to be your hazard mon every week it comes, and people can work around that. I don't see it doing too much else on a weekly basis. Incineroar is very good at what it does. It is a powerful pivot. It gets knockoff, Flare Blitz fucks. Parting Shot is a great pivot move. It also gets U-turn. Do like a straight up banded set. If there was one mon I had to question on this, why did you need another bug and poison type? It gets Quiver Dance, and that's about to see.
Yeah, he did like that very much.
Mm-hmm.
What Devin would say from what we talked about is you covered the hazards thing. The hazard removal thing is bad. And he just thinks Fortress is a shitty Pokemon, and you have absolutely no special defense on this team outside of Cineroar. That was paraphrased, but generally what he said, right, guys? Like, that's pretty much what he said. And very glass cannon team that's extremely easily killed was his issue with it. I don't know if I totally agree. I mean, the special defense thing is kind of right. Not a lot of special defense, as we said before. So I don't know about. I think this team does pride itself in its upper echelon offense and maybe put defense as an afterthought. But at least Pokemon like Swampert and Incineroar have direct synergy, and Swampert is just as capable of running special defense as it is physical defense. And at least Fortress also has synergy with Incineroar and Swampert. And at least Dusclops provides a very solid switch hitter defensive position for you whenever you have intense wall breakers to go against, like your Darmanitans or your Landorus Eyes. You do have something with a ridiculous special defense stat or defense stat to at least not be 2-hit KO'd by those things. That's all there for your defensive core. And at least Tapu Bulu gives everything recovery because most things on this team don't get recovery. So the defense is there. It's just obviously more geared to offense. And that would be what carried it. I mean, the threat of dealing with your top three alone is ridiculous. And you didn't need to draft that much more offense, but Incineroar still hits really hard. They hated it, but Venomoth is still a sweeper. And Staraptor, as you've already showcased, is one of the most elite bird spam breakers in the game. You know, there's a lot of upside with this team, but there's also a lot of downside. It's quite similar to Dravos' team, in my opinion. It just doesn't have the sun aspect. But nothing really works against each other. You know, it's just you don't have much special defense. That is an issue. And there's mostly just good stuff to say about the team elsewhere, which is why it would be so high. I guess Electros, I should mention in the special defense category. Electros is unfortunately quite easily weared down. You know, status, hitting it multiple times. And then the Volturn's really good. Right? Yes.
Volturn is insane on this team.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, and then Pseudo Wudo is kind of bad, but I'm sure he'll do something with it.
He does give an extra rocks option just in case.
It's like this is so funny. I was talking to him about his draft. He was gonna go Magnezone. And I told him, I said, man, like if you go Magnezone, then you've gone 4 rounds now, and you've committed to a steel type that doesn't learn Stealth Rocks. You're going to need to pick up something with Stealth Rocks. And I said Swampert's name, and he took it immediately after. And I said, like, maybe not Swampert, but something like that. And he took Swampert. I thought that was so funny.
Okay. Very good. All right. So now I get to take number 3.
Top 3.
And at number 3, we have Angie and the Miraculous Muse. So
and now you know who the top 2 are as well.
Now we do. So, first thing I would like to say is that this team, all of its cores are put together, and for the most part, they're all very scary cores. For example, you have Hydreigon, Sylveon, and Registeel. You have Hydreigon, who's always scary. It can use setup with things like Nasty Plot, or it can just run strictly offense with a Scarf for choice specs. You have Sylveon, who can stand there as a specially bulky cleric. It can provide wish support. It can provide heal bell for the team. And then you have Registeel, who helps on the physical side, thanks to its powerful steel typing, giving it all of its fun resistances, as well as having stupid high defense. I think its defense goes like up to 200 if I remember correctly, which is just insane. Then we also have the core of Mew, Heracross, and either Hydreigon again or Alolan Muck. Mew is as said before, Mew is one of the most actually, I think it is the most versatile Pokemon in the whole thing, because it gets access to almost any move you could ever want, and you can run so many sets with it. You can run defensive, you can run offensive, you can run setup, you can run choice. There are so many options for Mew, and it's going to be hard for your opponent to decide what they want to do to try and counter Mew, because they never know what set you're going to bring with it. Heracross, while it is more of a budget pick, it's still very good Mon. It has a decent speed tier. It gets access to Guts, so you can throw a Flame Orb on it. It gets powerful Fighting Stab, decent Bug Stab, pick off any weak Psychic types. And then Hydreigon, which we already talked about. And then Alolan Muck is an interesting one, but it can definitely do some work for this team. It can poison a lot of Pokemon thanks to Poison Touch. It's basically a better version of the two other Dark and Poisons we've seen so far. I'd say your Fire, Water, Grass with Rotom-Mow, Talonflame, and Cloyster is a bit on the weaker side. Obviously, Rotom-Mow is one of the weaker forms of Rotom, but it's still decent. Talonflame has definitely had a fall from grace since it lost its super boost with Gale Wings. It can still be used well, especially now that it gets access to dual wing beat, but there are going to be very few situations where you'll want to run dual wing beat instead of Brave Bird, which is where you're just going to have to drop the Gale Wings there. And then you also have Cloyster, which can be a nice setup mon with Shell Smash, but it's also very predictable. Most times when you see Cloyster come out, it's going to want to click Shell Smash. Either that or it's going to try and be a bulky hazard removal. There's not too much in between. The only Pokemon I haven't really talked about are your Mega. Obviously, Mega Aerodactyl is the fastest thing in the whole league, coming in at 150 base speed. And we saw you put in some decent work with it in your week 1 match, which is great. You have Runegregas, who's a bulky ghost type. It can take a lot of hits, it can set up your rocks, it can do some burning. Then you also have Tauros, who just fits in nicely as a nice speed tier gap. It's a decent normal type. In terms of what's bad about this team, as I said before, Cloyster seems like a very predictable mon. You can always get in and try to click Shell Smash, but I think that there might be few weeks where you can get it off successfully, and most times it'll end up being trying to go for that Shell Smash and then end up getting interrupted. I think that's pretty much it. Now that we're in the top 3, it's hard to find these weaknesses almost. But yeah, that's all I had to pretty much say.
I don't think Talonflame and Mega Aerodactyl make a whole ton of sense personally. I like the speed tier that Talonflame brings, but it's really about it. I don't see them really working all that well together. I could be wrong though, but I don't really see them working all that well together. I think this team is a perfect example of a jack of all trades. It really can. It checks every box and does absolutely nothing wrong. It might have some predictable sweepers like the Shell Smash thing, or even perhaps Swords Dance Talonflame, but it's still really solid. It doesn't do anything terribly wrong. I would say it oddly like it has good sweepers, but I don't think the best sweepers in the league. It has good defense, good defensive switch-ins, but not the best defensive switch-ins in the league. It has good breakers, but not the best breakers. You see where I'm going with this? It's all really solid all around, but I don't think anything like jumps out at me, which is why I average it out to number. I think it was number 3 for me, or number 2.
Yeah, number 3.
Number 3. Yeah, it was number 3 for me. I just looked. And but that is actually the same argument why Devin thinks you have the best team in the league. You are his number 1 because it doesn't do anything wrong, and that to him is good enough. And he thinks you have the best sweepers in the league. So he thinks the the combination of Hydreigon, Mega Aerodactyl, Talonflame, Cloyster, and even a little bit of Heracross in there, as well as, of course, Mew. He thinks you have the most potent sweepers in the game. So, kind of some insight on me and my brother there. Lily, what you got?
I will say Mew, while it is a very Angie, I know you're feeling this right now. It is a mon to build with, just because it can do so much. Sylveon kind of supports all your defensive mons because no one else gets recovery on this team aside from Talonflame. And Talonflame's obviously not a very bulky mon. I believe bulk was its thing back in Gen 6 rather than speed, just because it had those priority Brave Birds. But your defensive is kind of relying to not be chipped down too quickly. Your hazard removal is a little rough. The only mons I can see it are Rotom, Talonflame, and Mew on this team, and that can be hard to deal with sometimes. You do have pretty good hazard stack to make up for that, forcing your opponent to defog for you. Mew obviously checks off almost all the hazard boxes as of this gen. Rune gets both rocks and T-spikes.
Cloyster gets spikes.
Yeah, Cloyster, for those weeks you don't want a sweeping set, can just hazard stack for you and be a spinner. I will admit, Arrow and Talonflame are they're just both fast flying types, so bring them the same week kind of just when they share pretty much all the same flying weaknesses does hurt you. It makes you only want one a week.
But yeah, it's gonna be hard to replace that base 120 speed tier with
It
that
is.
slot though. So
That is the problem there.
It's just as essential as it might be damning type of thing. Like I wouldn't go and demand to yourself to do a free agency trade just because we weren't a big fan of that pairing. If you can optimally come up with a way to keep your speed tiers while also finding a bit more value out of that position, go for it. But it's still the top 3 team, and according to one of us, the best team in the league. So good job.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Next one, I suppose.
Yes. Next one, we will be moving on to the second place team in the league. Always second place.
See back to monotones for why this is so high.
Oh, it's going back to me?
No, like as in what I said whenever we got to you.
Oh, okay.
See that. We got outside opinions for this, and it's all our unbiased collective
always the people
averages.
in the video.
What?
It's always the people in the video that seem to have the top spots.
Yeah, because Dravos was up there too last season. That's right. Don't do it on purpose, I promise.
No, we went and got all the teams just so we can be certain we're not just being like biased on ourselves.
Yeah, and I'll say my catchphrase now. If you disagree with us, we have a Discord server, we have a comment section. Feel free to tell us, and we'll be more than happy to tell you that you are wrong. So let's go ahead and kick it off with the Kamikaze Carbinks. Fuck this guy, as always, for drafting these ridiculously good teams that have odd synergies throughout that make a lot of sense looking at them, but things we really couldn't come up with. The Corviknight Mega Diancie trend is really starting to be a common one that I've seen. A lot of people are getting high on this core in this particular league. I don't blame y'all. I literally don't see a reason. I don't see a weakness between the two of them, to be fully honest with you. One of them is a very solid defensive pivot that gives the other one fantastic initiative to do polarizing things in draft. Fairy and Rock ended up being an extremely good offensive pairing together for some fucking reason. That really works out. And then if you just want to go ahead and deal with base 150 attack stats and both attack stats each week, you just go ahead and do that. I'm not looking forward to it, but you know. Appleton might have been a little early as a pick in general, but I understand reaching because one, he was really excited to use it, and two, it makes a lot of sense with the likes of Mega Diancie and Corviknight. Excuse me, it makes a lot of sense with Corviknight, like a gazillion amount of sense with Corviknight. Managed to snag Weavile and Landorus Therian ridiculously late. I wasn't and then just throws Victini in there as well for probably one of the better offensive cores in the league. And it doesn't even have to commit to physical offense. We can see Victini run so many different sets. Basically, top to bottom, there isn't anything that just outright destroys his team. No typings, no play styles. It's got options for all of them. It has defense to stall out wall breakers and recovery to do so as well, with Jellicent having access to strength stat. But speaking of Jellicent, if we have to shit on this team at all, it's extremely Scald weak. And water type weak in general. Not a lot on this team wants to take burn Scalds, and not a lot of them. The one that isn't Jellicent that would is Appleton, and it would have to take an Ice Beam. That means you're bringing Jellicent a considerable amount of weeks when really it's supposed to be just a filler, whatever you needed, really a Ghost or Water type. Jellicent's a great Pokemon, but it's not something I'd want to bring 8 weeks. And if there's a week where I'm deciding to bring Corviknight, Mega Diancie, Appleton, Landorus Therian, Victini, and Weavile, that is a lot of Scald weakness on that team, and most water types get Ice Beam. So Jellicent's kind of pressured a lot on this team to come in and certify itself as that role. But whenever it does come, it will be excellent because it has access to the illustrious Strength Stat move that has absolutely no counterplay. And it has access to a wide variety of ways to do damage and ways to whittle things down. It's got Will-O-Wisp and Toxic with Hex. It's got Scald. It's got Ice Beam. It's got Shadow Ball Stab. It's got what it needs to. And again, we keep touching on Water Absorb being such a good ability for this particular team because of the Scald weakness. Vikavolt give this team webs so he can sweep you with Mega Diancie. He can sweep you with Weavile. He can sweep you with Victini. Probably not so much Victini. It's more of a breaker since V creates dropping it. But, there is still odd sets with Blue Flare, for instance, special, because Victini can definitely run special. And then we're just throwing in a big old banded first impression just along with this. Even more defog. I wish it got U-turn, but it doesn't. I don't know why Surfetch doesn't get U-turn. I thought Farfetch got U-turn, but I just recently learned that it doesn't. Team still has plenty of Volt turn, though, with the likes of Corviknight, Landorus, Victini. Vikavolt, and I suppose Smeargle does kind of count in that. Meme Pick is really what's keeping it out of the top, though. Wigglytuff virtually doing nothing for this team is really what's, I'd say, keeping it out of the top. And honestly, that's it. It's really good. I'm very high on both the top two teams. I can't tell you any certified weaknesses this team has, other than the fact that it's got that bad water weakness, and it does have a little bit of a rocks weakness. Like, Corviknight's really good to take stone edges, but two of your big hitters sharing a weakness really isn't that good a lot of the times. But luckily, this team compensates. It also has another kind of, not essential player, but a big one in Vikavolt, also having a rocks weakness. That could potentially be 3 heavy-duty boots users, which I know Lily will happily run with a fucking smile on his face. But it does hurt the versatility a little bit. That's all I gotta say.
Am I gonna take a stab or?
Yeah, you go next. Lily goes
Okay.
last because it's his time.
Okay. So I agree with pretty much everything that Brendan just went over. I would say definitely Wigglytuff is the one who really stops this team from possibly being the best team in the league. I would say if you wanted to try and make this the best team in the league, I would drop Wigglytuff and pick up something that can help you with that skull weakness. Like, maybe try picking up another water type, like we talked about before, or maybe try picking up another grass type. Just something to help with that weakness, just so it doesn't seem like such a detriment on having to go up against all these mons who like to run Scald and only having a Jellicent to deal with it. Well, everyone's kind of making fun of Smeargle. I do think this mon can be a sort of left field pick. Obviously, it's not too fast, being the same as Garbodor at 75, but because Smeargle gets access to literally any move you can imagine. That has a lot of versatility behind it. So you can use it as a super setter for all the hazards you could ever want. You can try using it for setup. You can try using it for status with things like Thunder Wave or Spore. There are a lot of uses for that mon. I feel like people are kind of undervaluing it. Also, I really like Garbodor on this team. Having access to toxic spikes, especially with your own bulky mons like Deontay, where you can just end up out bulking them because they have to worry about they have to worry about poison while you don't, is a very good advantage to have. Again, sticky webs are great for your slower mons. Weavile, I am especially scared of now, especially since it gets access to triple axle, which is essentially just a technician boosted ice move. That definitely feels like something you will run a lot more than the usual ice crash and is a lot more reliable. But yeah, I just think honestly, this team is super close to being one of the best teams in the league if you can just drop that Wigglytuff for something.
Was a rocker though, and Lando is basically running mono rocks whenever it comes because the other rockers on the team are Smeargle, Wigglytuff, Mega Diancie, and Landorus. Mega Diancie not wanting to use that move slot for rocks, and Smeargle and Wigglytuff not wanting to come to more than 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like Lando is an almost must bring a lot, and it's always running rocks.
All
I
right.
can see
Your
that.
turn. I guess it's your turn, Lily.
I'm gonna say right off the bat, if I dropped him on this Smeargle, because fuck you, Wigglytuff is gonna be MVP. I literally only grabbed Smeargle because I was like, low T rapid spin for me. Smeargle it is.
I mean, it's still number 2. You don't have to change
Yeah.
much.
Teleport. I think you're all sleeping on Wish Teleport because that I can see that being very just, or just teleport alone. Switching into these offensive threats is going to be kind of scary for some of my opponents. Yeah, Lando. I wasn't even going thinking I was going to draft, but I got some recommendations being like it kind of works well with the team. I was like, oh, I kind of agree, honestly. Weavile I grabbed because nice speed tier it gives me, and it's just a very strong offensive mon. Mega Diancie, you can all blame Jordan the Heartbreakers for me bringing that back. If no one had commented on how scary it was to prep for, I probably would have looked over that mon for the real season. I'm very excited to use a lot of these mons because I actually have barely any experience with the majority of them.
Shit, man. We're excited to see you use them too. Except if we have to play you, then we're not as excited.
Why not?
You're scary.
That should
You
be
win.
when you're
You
the.
win. You win much. You win a lot.
He might
I
even
am
try and
prepared to
win
be
the whole
runner-up yet
thing
again.
this time.
And your prep's insane. So
All right. And now we come to the big reveal.
here come my roasts. Here they come.
Our number 1 team. Jonathan, would you care to calm the flames and explain to the audience why this is the number 1 team?
Yes, I would, but it's confession time. I never
Oh.
took notes on this team because I felt like everyone did such a good job when I was getting thoughts on it.
Why don't you pull up some of the DMs then and just
Yeah,
kind of
that's what I'm
flip
gonna
onto
do.
that? Yeah.
All right.
So yeah, they sent him paragraphs as to the pros
Yeah.
for my team.
Mm-hmm.
We'll specifically mention Anderson, Brad, and Surmoth had very nice analyses on my team specifically.
Yeah.
And a matter of fact, the only person that didn't really like my team that much was Dravos. And we'll be explaining. I'll throw in at the end some of Dravos's points to be fully fair.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I'm going to read off Sir Moss because I felt like he explained the team best.
We can go for that.
Offense, Blaziken, Garchomp, and Blastoise are all potentially fantastic setup sweepers or breakers. Add to this Blaziken's ability to be mixed as well as threatening wall breakers of Obstagoon, Copperajah, and Mega Pidgeot in the back will combine to put insane pressure on anyone trying to stop this team in prep. This team does lean somewhat toward physical offense, but it's not a major issue. The physical threats break for each other, with bulky waters and fairies fearing Copperajah's Power Whip and Heavy Slam, and bulky steels fearing Blaziken and Garchomp. Not to mention that going too heavy on physical defense can leave the gate wide open for a Blaziken or Mega Pidgeot sweep, as well as a late game Blastoise can definitely run through a mostly physical defense team. This is just from the major offensive threats. If underestimated, Mesprit, Lycanroc, and Rotom also have major potential to pick up important KOs. And the momentum on this team is pretty fantastic. Half the team has access to offensive momentum, something that makes an already scary team that much scarier. For defense, while this team does appear to be skewed toward offense, the defensive core of Amoonguss, Florges, and Piloswine is incredibly sturdy and can be supplemented by bulky Garchomp and Blastoid builds for a slower game plan. With Amoonguss's ability to Spore and Florges' ability to pass, they have opportunities to support the offensive portion of the team much better than many traditional defensive Pokemon can. This team is also excellent at covering its own weaknesses. There isn't a single type in the game that stands out as a glaring problem to check, and even many of the most common type combinations, such as Edgequake or Bolt Beam, don't give this team much trouble. Utility? When finally we come to hazards, we come to one of my team. As far as hazards go, there is only Stealth Rocks. While this may not be a huge detriment in every matchup, there will be matchups where you will find the opponent's clear doesn't stack up well against your team, and a Toxic Spikes or regular Spike would help close the game with ease. Also, while clearing on this team is pretty decent, I do have a feeling Blastoise will be forced to spin more often than it wants to. Despite this, neither flaw is very huge and something to call the team bad over. As far as other utility goes, the team decent array, Spore Amoonguss, Parting Shot Obstagoon, the huge versatility of Mesprit, status of Rotom, and Wish Passing Florges all lends itself to a team that can support itself well.
Nice.
There you have it, folks.
Very good.
That was well thought out.
Good job on that, man.
That was well thought out. Very made me look pretty smart there. He told me some things about my team I didn't even know. I'll be real with you. Monotone, you got anything?
Mm-hmm. So the one thing I want to bring up is a point that we've been trying to bring up a lot, which is making the best out of the bad Pokemon. My biggest example right now is looking at the one Pokemon who seems like an outlier on this team, which to me is Rotom. Rotom on this team looks like it is the biggest outlier, and many people will probably wonder why would he pick Rotom. For one, it does give him that ghost typing, which is very good against rapid spinners. It's a decent enough electric type to put pressure on possible water types we've talked about before. And honestly, I don't think there's a better tier 5 who can fill out this team. So that's one of the biggest points, is that even though the tier 5s are the quote weaker Pokemon, you can still use them effectively if you grab the right ones. Because obviously Rotom isn't a mon that he wants to bring all the time. But because it has that ghost typing and because it has that electric typing, and can use those for specific scenarios. That's what we mean when we talk about using a tier 5 slot specifically correct. Also, Mega Pidgeot is scary. Many people will think it's not as scary as most other Megas. It still can put in a lot of damage thanks to it having no guard and getting access to moves like Hurricane and Heat Wave. And being able to land those all the time are going to be dangerous, especially for Pokemon who are trying to find a swap in. It'll most likely have to be a revenge kill with a sacrifice being made to the team. I know that Brandon has sort of a dislike for Caparaja, but I think it adds a good element to this team as a nice bulky steel type. It can run Body Press for defensive sets, it can run Heavy Slam. It's a decent enough Stealth Rocker to help warrant that. I do think that Blastoise will be running Rapid Spin more than it wants to, but I also think that on the rare occasions that Rotom is brought, it can run Rapid Spin, or it can run Defog instead. But Rapid Spin will feel most likely because he would like to keep his own hazards up. But then again, that's also why he drafted 5 Mons who can set up rocks, so he doesn't have to have just one rock setter. He could bring 2. So he can have 1, he can set it up, and then he can defog away any hazard on his side, and he can just set up more with his other Mon. The whole point of why we think this team is the best is just like they said, looking through this team, there is not one Pokemon, there is not one move, or is there not one technique that I see that can possibly take out any and all of these Pokemon with a single shot. The team is well crafted, it's nice and balanced in offense and defense, and it has enough support to back all of that up.
Damn, my boy Mono is a wordsmith.
Y'all making me blush. Holy shit. I'm never gonna run 2 rockers though. That's something I'll never do.
You're not going to do the Cyrun play?
I'll just get that out of the way right now for y'all. I'm not gonna run 2 rockers. Don't worry. I do wish I could have picked up some spikes or toxic spikes, but I'll make it work. My offense is nuts. If you don't prep for Shell Smash Blastoise, you'll lose to it. So it just demands prep in that moment. Rotom's hella underrated. Excited to show that off. Lycanroc there is a mon that has been talked about a lot, but it's still an option as a low-tier Swords Dancer, or it's still an option as a low-tier Choice user. And a Cell Rock is going to be really nice for me to spam, considering if there is something that you can maybe possibly knock my team for, its flying types are actually not that bad versus me because I have a pretty low specially defensive and really physically defensive steel type in Caparaja. And Rotom might not have the best volume, so I'm really relying on something like Florges to at least switch into those hits. So it'll be nice to have something to pressure those flying types. Another good way to break my team if you were looking to do so. I'd say a really strong dragon will put you in a good position, especially one with fire coverage. Really strong dragons kind of messed me up, and I am really heavily relying on Florges, especially if they get fire coverage and also something like Ironhead. A lot of dragons get ridiculous coverage, so it's not totally out of the water for that to happen and for me to stress about in prep. So be warned, that's a couple of ways, but they're right. I still have supplements for each of those typings, and offensively it doesn't have too terribly many weaknesses. It just hits hard all around. My sweepers are potent. They do rival some of the better ones, and Blastoise is the big hitter there. Obviously my starter core Blaziken as well can put in some sweeping efforts with the likes of Protector Swords Dance. I've run very creative Garchomp sets that were able to sweep opponents. I mentioned Lycanroc before. It's fast enough to be a breaker, and then for the faster mons, I do have priority. And then cleaners around this game and this team are solid as well with Mega Pidgeot. Mesprit's also quite slept on. It has base 105 in every stat that's not HP and speed. You got to think of the crazy things I can do with that, right? You got to think of the assault vests I can run. You got to think of the choice sets I can run. You have to think of the Thunderwave Stealth Rock shenanigans I could run. I mean, is it totally out of the blue for me to run Spec Psychic on this thing? Probably not. So just be aware. I think it's a good team too. And I appreciate it. I'm glad everybody else thinks so.
Mm-hmm.
I will say Rotom is an extremely steal is a very big steal in tier 5, in my opinion.
I was really happy with it. I think I have one of the better tier 5s.
I would agree.
And it's my only tier 5 on this team too. It's also good that I didn't have to draft too many of those. Because Mega Pidgeot gave me so many points back. Whoever signed off on that thing giving me 60 points to work with, I don't know what's wrong. You got to figure something out. You can't give me 60 points and Mega Pidgeot.
It's all
That's my favorite
it's
Mega in
all
the game, man.
it's all experimental. We just try things out. If it doesn't happen to work, we switch it around.
All right, bro. Look, I got Mega Lucario banned last season. I think I got Zygarde 50 almost moved up to tier 0.
To be honest, I was in the camp that Mega Lucario shouldn't have even been allowed in the first season. In the second,
I was too.
Most of us were.
Well, clearly not, because it got in there.
Got itself banned. Mega Lucario got itself banned. That was more of a. I'm more proud of what I did with Zygarde than Mega Lucario. And even then, that's still a mon. That's very good.
Mm-hmm.
These people also wanted to allow Shadow Tag Mega Gengar.
Come on. That's too good.
It was a good idea in theory.
It's a good idea in theory.
All right, man.
All right, but anyways, that is going to wrap up the power ranking for the Platinum Draft League. I don't know whether to call it Season 3 or not, because technically it's a different name, but I guess it still is Season 3, it's just new name.
Again, sorry YeWen couldn't be here.
Yes.
We really tried our best to get it going.
We tried.
And you know, I've said it once and I'll say it again. You know, this is a subjective view about specifically the build of the teams and how we view the average player would function with the said team, the weaknesses and strengths they will have to work with, and if that outweighs anyone else's weaknesses and strengths. We have a Discord server. We have a YouTube comment section. Feel free to tell us your opinions and how you feel. If you thought we were right, we were wrong. And, you know, if you thought we were wrong, we'll be more than happy to tell you that you were wrong. So, no,
or
we
if
really
you want to make your own list, feel free to.
Hey, absolutely. And we really do appreciate, I really appreciate this community. I'm at a crossroads at the moment with a lot of real life stuff happening. I'm going to be a college student here soon. Starting at a new job that demands some hours. So there's a good chance that I'm going to be dropping a lot of leagues, but I'll tell you, I'm not going anywhere here. I really like participating with you guys on a season-to-season basis. So if I drop anything, it's not going to be our team. So I just wanted to, or excuse me, PDL. So I just wanted to say thanks for letting us in. Me and YeWen in 3 seasons ago whenever you guys started. Really appreciate the community here and just want to keep making great seasons. I want to be here for season 10, season 11. So,
absolutely.
Yep.
And Mono, since I haven't said it all video, big fan.
Big fan.
Big fan.
Best streamer on Twitch.
Thank you.
And the best power ranker on YouTube. Let's be honest. This man's woke.
Yeah.
This man does his research.
Mm-hmm. And if you watch this video and you're thinking to yourself and you're wondering, how can we make these changes or what should we make these changes to, feel free to reach out to any of the 4 of us and we will do our best to help you with making these changes and trying to make the team that it's the best it can possibly be.
Contrary to popular belief, I am very approachable.
We are all very approachable. So just reach out, even if it's just a quick DM. We should be able to get back with you and try to help you. If you don't agree with the advice that we give you, you don't have to. But if you want to try and take a chance, take a chance.
And if you're some rando who just stumbled upon this video, the fuck you doing? Why aren't you in the server?
Oh, Shy Crow will be here.
Mm-hmm.
Shy Crow will be here. Don't worry. Don't you worry about that. I'll be listening to this whole thing.
I mean, heck, I'll probably end up including a link to the server in the description just so people can join if they're interested. Because things come up. We might end up looking for a substitute, or we might end up looking for someone to fill in a spot in Season 4. Who knows?
This
Yeah,
league
maybe
has one of the best communities I've seen out of the few leagues I've been in.
Mm-hmm.
And the best tier list, one of them, except a couple things, as I've already mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah. But
Yeah, I mean, that was fun, guys.
yeah, this feels like the perfect place to wrap it up. So thank you to everyone who stuck around for the whole time to watch. Or if you just pop by to just see where your team ranked, thank you anyways for just stopping by. We appreciate it. And I hope you will stick around to check out the league maybe, see what's going on. Who knows? You could end up staying around for a while. But
All right.
we're going to wrap
All
things
right.
up. So everyone
Popeye,
say...
you're a nerd.
Whoa. That
Alright,
was rude.
everyone say your goodbyes.
Papa, you're a cool guy. Don't listen to Lily. Bye.
I would never lie to you. Ta-ta.